Here is a little tip about the getDir function. You can select any keyword in MaxScript and press the F1 button in order to get help from the online reference about that keyword, but in some cases, like in the case of getDir, when it's expecting a certain name keyword, you can use the error system of 3ds Max and call the function with wrong argument in order to get a list of all the possible arguments. For example, getDir £A is not a valid argument, so the error message is giving us a list of all the possible arguments that the function is expecting. This is a nice trick that might save you time when you don't remember what exactly was the export or the import or the help or preview flag for accessing that directory. Basically, getDir is providing you access to all the system paths defined in the Customize Configure Paths dialog of 3ds Max. At first glance, the task save every single object to a separate file sounds difficult. In fact, I remember people on public support forums asking if it's possible at all. Surprisingly enough, writing every single object to a separate Max file using the name of the object as the name of the file requires just a single line of MaxScript code. Most of the code will look very familiar. This is a typical job for a for loop. But in order to keep the objects separated from the original file, it is a good idea to take the current Max file path and create a subfolder to hold all the new Max files. MaxScript provides two system global variables containing the current Max file name and the path. As you would expect, Max file name returns the file name of the current scene, and Max file path returns the path. Obviously, in order to get the complete name, we can add the one to the other. Let's create a user variable called the path and assign the current Max file path plus a custom string single objects, which is going to be the name of the subfolder we want to create. Now we have a string containing the original Max file path of the current scene plus the subfolder single objects. This path doesn't exist yet, so we're going to call a function to create it. Merkkleding and then supplying the path as an argument creates a new folder single objects and returns true, which means that the creation was successful. After this point, if we would call Merkkleding the path again, the result would be false because the path already exists. Now we can take a for loop and go through all the scene objects, call the save nodes function for every single object in the scene, and save to the path plus slash the name of the object and the explicit max extension. The reason we are using the max extension is that some of the scene objects, for example the camera 01 target, already have a dot inside the name, which could be taken as the extension and would create a file which doesn't have the .max extension. The save nodes function would assume that .target is actually the extension of the file. Because we don't want to get anything like that, we have to supply the .max in this case. Now let's call this function. MaxScript is now saving every single object to a separate max file. And when it's done, we can take a look at the result. The function shell launch is equivalent